friends. Welcome to Walking with J.Beau, an almost daily walking vlog. On this day, October 17th, 2025. It's about 60 degrees today, which is a lot warmer feeling than it has been. I will be doing a selfie view up ahead. We have a few things to talk about today. I'll start off with President Trump meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, the White House. The topic of discussion seemed to be about Tomahawk missiles. Which would dramatically change things against Russia. And it's unfortunate because, well, I have to be honest, I do not support supplying Zelensky with Tomahawk cruise missiles. Because one mistake with those or Zelensky doing something dishonest with those. Because sometimes you have something called the fog of war. So, with the fog of war, there may be some kind of Russian counterattack launched or something, and you may have like a bunch of Ukraine soldiers trapped, and someone says, well, why don't we just take them out with this weapon, the Russians that is. They launch that, and then something bad happens from that and things escalate. I would hope there would be certain kinds of restrictions on what they could be used for. Only infrastructure, because so far Zelensky has been attacking refineries, critical infrastructure for Russia, trying to weaken their economy. To some great success, actually. It's estimated that 20% of Russia's energy production has been disrupted through attacks on refineries. And it's causing gas lines in Russia. Fuel is being rationed. Now, in Russia, they have a lot of state-run media propaganda, and quite possibly, so you know, that's the second Rick LaChapelle school committee sign I see ripped up. That is the conservative guy running for school committee. The one I voted for. So anyway, what I was saying is the Russian media and propaganda promote the state's goals and national patriotic thises and that's. Russians may have a different picture of how things are going in Ukraine. And I say that because the polling company in Russia is accredited, according to the research I've done online. And I didn't even see any leftist outlets saying that you can't trust those polls. So they're probably pretty accurate. But as of June of this year, Vladimir Putin had an 81% approval rating among Russians. This is after maybe 1.5 million Russians have been killed in Ukraine. There's a high death toll. The Russian style of warfare is, well, to put it bluntly, throwing men into the meat grinder, and military objective is acceptable if you lose way too many men to do it. They just want to win, and they're not winning. So now they had gained quite a bit of ground, and it still looks like Ukraine could lose. But now it's going to come down to NATO, the UN, the United States, and what are we going to contribute to help Zelensky beat Russia. And I would prefer we're not involved at all. That has been my policy on this channel. I don't want us involved in wars. Fortunately, because President Trump had the foresight to have NATO increase how much nations were paying, that we are no longer footing the bill for this. So whatever weapons we send to Ukraine, we're being compensated for, which is very important, okay? That seemed to be what bothered a lot of Americans more than anything. President Trump realized that, said, well, if you're going to have American support for Ukraine, there has to be a solution where it's not costing Americans tax dollars to do it. And that seems to be working. Tomahawk missiles are not cheap. They're not, even a little bit. Now, Zelensky today said that they could supply the United States with drones as part of the compensation for these missiles, which is laughable. It really is, because, you know, drones are not expensive. It'd have to be a whole fuckload of drones to pay for Tomahawk missiles. Plus, we have our own drone programs here that have kicked off. So the United States military has started their own huge drone warfare program of our own, because anybody with a brain has seen how effective they have been against the Russian military. So we're on it. We're on it, my friends. So no, we don't really need any drones from Ukraine. Trump will probably just tell him to keep his drones. You're going to need them. And NATO will pay us for Tomahawk missiles. But the big important news to stress is that Russia's economy is starting to feel the war. That's what we want. And Trump said today that just about all of India's purchasing of oil, which was 30% of Russia's oil India was buying, has come to an end. So Russia is going to be in tough shape pretty quickly here. Looks like somebody up here waiting for a school bus. Must be waiting for their kids. Cut across this way. I'll stay out of the way after we pass the bus. I'll turn the camera around. On this 60-degree day, which earlier today had high wind, and that's died down, thankfully. Very thankfully. I do not like walking in wind. We'll cut across the street now. Hi, my friends. Hi, everybody. Thank you for walking with me today. Hope you're having a beautiful day. Hope everything's wonderful. I gotta put my LCD screen on. I'll be right back.
Resuming walk.
All right, get that squared away now. I wanted to see myself on the screen. So anyway, I have a feeling eventually, okay, and I don't really see too much longer for this war with Ukraine, because the last thing left to do is to really cripple Russia financially. Sanctions haven't done it because there's other countries buying stuff from Russia. So now that NATO is making an effort to stop buying energy from Russia, pretty much Russia is a giant gas station. They don't lead the world in a lot of things like manufacturing. They sell wheat and they sell oil and gas. So that's what we're going to have to deal with. And Russia's going to have to feel things economically. And I'm going to turn the camera around for this stretch here because the
19 minutes, 20
leaves
seconds.
actually look very nice. So we'll walk through with the camera turned around because the leaves are prettier to look at than I am. So we're going to have a lot of things to deal with, you know, with Russia and Ukraine. And it's in everybody's interest for that war to end. So as I was saying earlier when all the cars were going by, I would very much like to not be involved at all. But that is not the world we live in. It affects everything from gas prices to food prices. Ukraine and Russia combined supply so much wheat, you know. It's a very big part of the world's wheat basket. So the leaves actually look pretty nice today. Surprised. Look at that. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, my friends. Now the late bloomers are starting to blend with the early bloomers. And the early bloomers already have their leaves gone for the most part. So So I guess that's all I got today on Russia and Ukraine, other than Putin has made it very clear Ukraine getting Tomahawks is not going to go over well with Vladimir Putin. Who knows what he would do? That's another reason why I'm not in favor of it. It's a mess. Because you give Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, then they can strike other places anywhere in Russia, basically. I don't know what the range is for Tomahawks, but they're pretty far. So it could escalate things to the point where Vladimir Putin, if he's desperate, can start thinking about tactical nukes on the battlefield. Those small nukes I told you about. They take out things within a mile radius. But that would pretty much be the end of Putin's campaign, because there would be serious retaliation for that. There would be serious retaliation for that internationally. Maybe even condemnation from China. Even though China is currently an ally of Russia, buying their energy. China is buying most of Russia's energy, really. So, but the Russian economy is definitely feeling it. this guy I want to talk about here on this sign. This sign here, Graham Plattner, okay? Remember that name, Graham Plattner, for U.S. Senate. Pretty much guarantee you he is going to be a tough primary defeat for Janet Mills, governor of Maine, who announced that she's throwing her hat in the ring for the currently 8 8 Democrats vying for the U.S. Senate seat to run against Susan Collins. Susan Collins is going to have no shortage of money. Now here's the good news. As soon as Janet Mills announced that she was going to throw her hat in the ring, most people suspect she's going to win the primary, but I would not be so sure. She probably thinks she's going to. Chuck Schumer obviously thinks she's going to because she's the one he picked. And but I'm not so sure, because among young people, okay, young people, the youngest voters who are very motivated right now to vote because of Trump and ICE and all this other stuff going on, that this guy Graham Plattner I just told you about is a U.S. veteran. Okay, oh, that's great. U.S. veteran. He's got a red, white, and blue sign like he's American. But his comments that he has made is white people in Maine are racist. He's a far-left Looney Tune. He once called himself a communist. So this is the problems we're going to have here in New England and all blue states. Okay, Mamdani is having success in New York. That's the first problem. Mamdani in New York has openly defended his stances on most things. He's walked back a couple, like the anti-police comments, and realizes certain things with voters you can't do. And now, well, I said those when I wasn't running. I certainly don't feel that way, he said. So there are limits to their lunacy. Now this guy, Graham Plattner, is gaining momentum. I'm seeing people on YouTube videos talking about him. They're not talking about Janet Mills. Nobody here likes Janet Mills, even the Democrats. Because Janet Mills didn't go far left enough. She didn't go extreme far left Looney Tune enough for the younger voters. Then you have the 1/3 of Maine are independents. About half of those independents lean left. The rest are either leaning right or undecided. And so you can see the problems I'm laying out here, right? Pretty simple math. This is a time for Graham Plattner to excel in the Democratic Party, who are currently having a war with each other over Janet Mills and Graham Plattner, because Mills has been governor since 2010. All right. 2012, I believe. Anyway, point being, No, she hasn't. Not since 2012. Nope, nope, nope. 2016, I want to say. Something like that. There's 6-year terms. So, or 4-year terms. Can only serve 2. I thought we had 6-year terms, but that doesn't add up mathematically. It has to be 4 for governor. 6-year term is for Senate. Regardless, can only serve 2 terms in Maine. She's term limited. She's 76 years old, okay? So next year's election, because she turns 77 in December. Next year's election, 2026, she would turn 78 in December. She would finish her term as a senator in her 80s. So, 82, I believe. She said she's running, and she's running completely just on anti-Trump. I fought against Trump. I did this to Trump. Trump is this. I need to run to save my kids from Trump. Save my grandkids from an authoritarian dictator. Blah, blah, blah. So, that's what she's running on. Graham Plattner, on the other hand, is I support affordable housing, banning guns, distribution of wealth, lowering your rents, making food more accessible to the elderly. See, he's doing everything that Democrats used to do, and they're forgotten because they have Trump derangement syndrome. And Mamdani has captured that. If you watched the debate the other night, I watched about a half hour of it. Andrew Cuomo was in a coma. The Republican that was running was good. But I have to tell you, Mamdani, that guy is a talent, okay? He is scary talented, great speaker, makes his points. He's very quick. He doesn't take time to think. He has all his answers ready. He's sharp as a damn tack. And quite honestly, the people on the primary stage did not know how to handle him. Now, if you're familiar with Polymarket, that's an online bidding. But what it's good for is they have people bet on who's going to win elections. It gives you a very good, accurate gauge of someone's popularity or non-popularity. They give Mamdani a 90% chance of winning the election. And I believe that's accurate. I think right now it's his race to lose, pending anything coming out where he killed somebody and they just found out about it. Or, you know, and you know, it's really terrible that the Democrats have such terrible, terrible candidates. Andrew Cuomo is a terrible candidate. He is just friggin' awful. Basic things. Andrew Cuomo brings up something that would be brought up during a debate. He goes, this guy never had a job. He's never run anything. He's got no experience. What happens if we have a terrorist attack in New York? Like another 9/11? Or something worse? Or mass rioting? Mamdani goes, well, when you were running New York City, you put thousands of people to their death in nursing homes because you made a mistake and you sent old people to nursing homes to die from COVID. whether it was intentional or not. In other words, you know, you're telling me, and you did that, you know, and that plays well with the audience because it's true, you know. The other thing they had was they had the CNN moderator constantly interrupt the other two to give Mamdani time to talk. That is Mamdani's gift, talking, okay? He's a better talker than Obama was. So I'm just telling you right now, this guy's going to be mayor of New York. Don't know if he'll get 2 terms, but if he doesn't, polls say that he's not doing well, he'll run for a national office. And he's going to be a friggin' handful for people. But hopefully he will have a terrible record at that point when nothing he tried to do worked. Because he says a lot of things convincingly. You know, normally somebody without experience running for the office in New York City wouldn't even have a chance, wouldn't even get through the gate. It's a big city. It's a nerve center of the country. It's the capitalist center. And you got this non-capitalist communist running for office. And he's going to win. So he's a good talker. America has seen how dangerous good talkers are. I like President Trump because he's not a good talker. He's not a good speaker. He thinks he's a good speaker, but that's why I like him. So anyway, Graham Plattner may very well upset the apple cart and oust Janet Mills, because I think the Democratic Party's best chance to beat Susan Collins is Janet Mills, because she already has a financial network, she has the backing of the media. So she definitely has the media. Now, what's going to work for Susan Collins is Janet Mills' record. Well, we've got some turkeys out in the field there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just went in the woods. So anyway, Janet Mills has almost doubled our state budget in just the last 6 years. And, you know, that has to be paid for. It has to be paid for. She was relying on federal bailout money. But that's dried up, and she's pissing off Trump with this Title IX violation stuff, which is still in the courts, by the way. I want to throw that out there. Democrats will probably like to keep it there and forget it even happened, because this transgenderism stuff, as I was talking about on my last walk last night, has about halved in support from young people. And it's been a political loser for Democrats nationally. Even though they're still promoting it in the deepest blue states, it's not going to last. There's going to be a reckoning for Democrats in these blue states. And eventually people are going to get tired of it. They're either going to elect more moderate, normal Democrats, which is what I think the party is going to do because they have to, or they're going to go even more socialist and become a long-term minority party in the United States, like the Republicans used to be. So you may see a swapping of power going on right now. So this is quite a time to be alive. Democrats cannot get rid of the transgender gender ideology albatross around their neck because they put so much into promoting it. Because that's what the big donors wanted. Speaking of big donors. Now, first, before we get into that, Graham Plattner, my personal opinion is he is going to kick Janet Mills out of the contest. He is going to upset and win the primary for Democrats. I say that because he's young, good looking, speaks well, not afraid to say what's on his mind, and he's getting a very good following very quickly. Enough to the point where the Democratic Party is starting to fight amongst themselves. I mean, the leadership. Who are they going to back? Janet Mills, who's 76, or this guy who's in his 40s? So, or closer to 50. It looks to be about 50 maybe. So we'll see what happens, but I think Janet Mills has run her course. She doesn't have a good, I mean, she's a legend in her own mind, okay? She's not anything special. She's not a good speaker either. In fact, she's terrible. But she has done some things to the far left that have pissed them off. She vetoed 2 gun legislation bills because, quite honestly, they didn't make sense. Democrats here own guns, but the Democrats in southwestern Maine do not. They hate firearms. They're in control of the party right now. These are the same radical idiots you see in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and things like that. So the Democratic Party is going further left than they have ever been. Further left than the crazy far left lunacy we've seen. And the top leadership of the Democratic Party understand that the only way to fix it is to get rid of this young riffraff, change all of their policies, and that takes time. That can take 10, 15 years. Because donors, their major donors, Soros and people like that, Open Society, they want socialism in America. They give millions and millions and millions of dollars. They prop up district attorneys to turn the other cheek, to give people of color light sentences and to sentence white people to harsh sentences, racist policies. They want to destroy America from within. I think a lot of Americans are waking up to that, finally, and realize there's no difference between the Red Scare in the 50s to what's going on now. And in fact, today, I will say, it's even worse now than it was before. So we're in crisis mode as we see a UPS truck. That's another thing I saw today. Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, all right, has announced yesterday that the state of Maine is no longer going to use UPS to handle ballots, since ballots were found in an Amazon Prime shipping box. She didn't say anything about how the investigation was going, but she's obviously seen enough to conclude that UPS can't be trusted. So maybe somebody working for UPS was working for Democrats to cheat. Don't know. But I do know that she has opted for a smaller courier service. All right? A courier service. So that means it's more expensive, but The problem I have with it is a smaller courier service. Would they be more willing to cheat for Democrats because they're smaller? I don't know that answer. They're obviously doing it so they could have more control over the ballots. How much control over ballots do they want? Like full control? Like cheating control? I don't trust Shanna Bellows. I don't trust anybody that tried to, not tried to, she did. She kicked Trump off the primary ballot. She lost in court. Trump was on the ballot. I voted for him. And I should add, when Trump won on the ballot in Maine for the primary, he got about 79% of the Republican vote on the primary ballot. This was even with a campaign by Democrats, because we have a semi-open primary where unaffiliated voters can vote for Democrat or Republican or independent. Independents can vote Democrat or Republican. And we had a third independent party in Maine. Electorate, not party. The independent party is Libertarian, Green, etc., so on, okay? There's even a Democrat Socialist of America, which is where Mamdani comes out of, right? Mamdani, by the way, went to college at Bowdoin College here in Maine. A very open far-left extremist college. Same college Longfellow went to, and other prominent famous people in New England. So they have been radicalized. They are far left now. And that's Mamdani went to school there. His family is affluent, and you know, so anyway, that's the stuff that's going on. So Shanna Bellows wants to switch. Well, she doesn't want to, she did. She switched courier service for the ballots to somebody that they can trust, whatever that means. Now, Shanna Bellows has also thrown her hat in. Well, Shanna Bellows threw her hat in to replace Mills as governor of Maine. So you have Democrats clamoring for powerful positions in Maine. There's still a Senate majority. The guy that is the Senate majority leader now is going to be running for governor also. So Democrats have lost seats in Maine. They've lost power in Maine. They're still in power, but they have lost power, if that makes sense. So I think you're going to see a third of Maine's independents. Well, Maine independents, which is a third of the electorate. I think you're really going to hear them this year in the next election, next month. Voter ID and red flag laws and school committee positions.
Distance 2.5 miles. Time 49 minutes 12 seconds.
So we're going to be hearing from these people, I believe, in the next election, because we heard from them in the last one. Democrats lost seats. They didn't like what the Democrats were doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how the electorate feels this election about voter ID. I already know 69% in Maine, which, by the way, is one of the lowest supports for voter ID nationally. And 69% is very good. So we'll see how that plays out. Democrats are not going to vote for it. Some of them will. About 30% of Democrats approve voter ID, despite the Democrats heavily promoting against voter ID. I've seen the first TV ad running with Shanna Bellows admitting that there were illegals that were voting. So that's going to further help. Crazy times we're living in, bros. Crazy times. So I got to tell you, my honest opinion, Zoran Mamdani is better than Obama ever could think he was. He's a better speaker, and he is a lot more dangerous than Barack Obama. And this guy, mark my words, is going to run for national office, and he's going to be a force to be reckoned with if he has a successful mayorship in New York City. I'm always honest with you guys. I really absolutely hate communism, socialism, but they always find these activist types who are very good at what they do. Very good. Do not underestimate them. A lot of people underestimated Obama. Oh, he's got a Middle Eastern name. He's black. He was a community organizer. Yeah, well, look what he did. Do not underestimate these people. Ever. A lot of Democrats underestimated Trump. They laughed at him. Look what happened. Cannot do that in politics. You have to look at it honestly, okay? Mamdani has really good attributes. This guy, Graham Plattner, running against Janet Mills in here. And I'll tell you right now, it's either going to be Plattner or Mills in the primary. It's a semi-open primary, registered as a Republican. I'm not allowed to vote in the Democrat primary. So I can't cross over, and you know, that's the way it should be. Independent voters can, and they will, I'm sure. And we'll see how well Janet Mills does. I can tell you she's not very popular in Maine. Not even with the hardcore progressives, because they feel like she doesn't go far left enough. That's why Graham Plattner is fully willing to go as far left as it takes. Far left as it takes. And in the past, he has made pro-communist commentary. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where he stands and what he's going to do, does it? All these guys ever need, and what holds them back, is money. When they make a national breakthrough and they see the Republican Party is paying attention to Mamdani, well, Mamdani is going to have all the friggin' money he needs. He has a war chest right now he's never going to use. Doesn't need to. He's already got this election won. And you know me, I always hate, his got it in the bag mentality. But Cuomo is so friggin' horrible. On Poly Market, Cuomo had a chance until that debate. And then he dropped like a rock. He was still about 18 or 19 points behind Mamdani. It would not surprise me if he's 30 points behind now after that debate. So Cuomo did not demonstrate to me that he wanted the job, and that's the problem he had before. So anyway, that's currently what the Democrats are doing. The current shutdown status is we are shut down until after the Hate America rally this weekend, which is the No Kings rally. And it was very important that the government be shut down because one of the organizers, who is a donor, okay, a mega donor, someone who donates millions and millions and millions of dollars to Democrats, said in a quote that Chuck Schumer, if he does not shut the government down, he is going to be primaried and he's going to be removed. If it's the last thing I do. And that's why we are shut down right now. Because Chuck Schumer does not want to do what's best for the country. He wants to keep his ass. He wants to keep his seat. He's a son of a bitch. So, I suspect, not too long after the No Kings rally this weekend, you're going to find a compromise. Okay, this is how the lockdown, the shutdown's going to end. Okay, I'm calling this now. You can remember I said it. I don't know a lot of things, but I have watched politics for many decades. It's always been a hobby of mine. I've always been interested. When I was younger, I made some mistakes with it, but you learn from those mistakes. I can say with pretty good accuracy from experience that the shutdown is going to end not long after the No Kings rally ends. It's already been going on for 2 weeks. Typically, they don't go more than 30, 31, 32 days. So, we're in the longest one we've had in a while. So I hear gunshots in the distance. Somebody enjoying their Second Amendment right. So, it's going to this is how the shutdown's going to end. I'll get to the point. What's going to happen is you already have mediaries having discussions about compromising because the Democrats have made the Affordable Care Act subsidies as the main focal point of the shutdown, even though they were going to be discussed in 7 weeks anyway, because Biden's budget runs out by the end of this year. So this was just simply a continuing resolution to continue the government for 7 more weeks so those discussions can start. Okay, so now this is going to delay those discussions, which is going to cause another backlog problem before Christmas, and Republicans are going to be pressured to support all the pork the Democrats are going to try to put in the bill, which Trump is going to have to find. Well, sounds funny saying it. I'm not going to say he has to find a spine. He has one. He has to emphatically let the Democrats know that he's not going to cave. We will start next year unfunded if you do that. So, the Democrats are going to fill that with pork. So what's going to happen, so we hear gunshots. What's going to happen is Democrats are going to compromise and accept somebody like Susan Collins' proposal to agree to open the government with a guarantee that we will have discussions about the Affordable Care Act. All right? Now, this is comical because they were going to do that anyway. In 7 weeks, they were going to have to sit down and work out a compromise anyway, because those subsidies, because of the one big beautiful bill, are going to run out. Biden's budget runs out. We're still on Biden's budget, by the way, okay? So this continuing resolution was to continue Biden's budget, and the Democrats want to keep all their pork. So that's what this is all about. So that's how it's going to end. The Democrats are going to say, okay, well, we got the Republicans to bend a knee and compromise. That'll give Chuck Schumer his win that he wants. And it also gives the Republicans a win because the Republicans aren't giving up anything. It's something that was going to happen anyway. But that's how this shutdown is going to end. It's all about political gamesmanship, playing games with us. So we hear gunshots out that way. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. I think about a week after this weekend, the shutdown's going to end or be close to it. Republicans are holding a press conference every day, by the way. In case you were wondering or you didn't know, I should have mentioned it. The media is not covering what they're saying. They're there asking questions for the online media, but the actual press conferences, Republicans are giving them every day. The House, Congressional House. You can find those at Mike Johnson's YouTube. Also the GOP House Republicans YouTube channel, or on social media. They're all posted on there as well. So last night's walk, I had the chest harness on, and I had the camera mounted, and I had the zipper pulled up around the camera to the bottom of it, and the camera was rubbing on the metal zipper while I was walking. So that's what that scratchy noise is almost for my entire walk last night. So sorry about that. I shall remember not to do that. Some squirrels running around in the woods. They make a lot of noise. A lot of times you hear all this rustling in the woods. Oh geez, that must be a big deer or a moose or something. No, it's like just two little squirrels chasing each other, making a ruckus. Beautiful day today, 60 degrees, nice. Past couple days it's felt very raw and cold. Today doesn't feel cold. That sounded heavier than a squirrel. That sounded heavier than a squirrel. I don't see anything moving out there until we had some wind. And broke a branch. It's been very windy for a couple days. Another reason why I took this route is I really like how the sun looks when it gets low in the sky on this walk, especially with the fall foliage. Finish up this walk. Picked up my trail mix. I'm good on trail mix. Pretty much after I walk, I put some trail mix in a bowl and eat it with a teaspoon. Not too much, just enough to get some energy back. Get some nutrients. So Democrats right now are very dangerous, very dangerous. Their establishment that they've had for decades basically has fallen apart. They have fallen out of favor with the public because of their policies that they decided to accept from the mega donors, okay? So the mega donors are going to recruit all these young socialists slash communists. You have no idea how many young people that are Democrats I've seen online with Russian hammer and sickle, Antifa, Marxist symbols. There is a whole generation of these lunatics that they can never be given the power, the reins of power nationally in the United States. This guy, Mamdani, is going to be a test in New York City. Elizabeth Warren has endorsed him. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem Jeffries, sort of. Chuck Schumer really hasn't. And it's because these young people want to get rid of the Schumers of the world. I do too. But the benefit of having these people run against Susan Collins, if this Graham Plattner, I would rather have Janet Mills run against Susan Collins, because I know Susan Collins can beat her. One thing, they're both in the same age group, so they can't start crying about ages. These old people need to go. So you remove that, that opens the door for more policy discussions, which Janet Mills has been wishy-washy at best, siding with whatever helps her party or herself. She's also enriched a couple of family members with contracts.
1 hour 8 minutes 36 seconds.
So she's a dirty birdie. She's an easier out for Susan Collins. The biggest thing, though, especially with independents, I was getting on with that earlier, is there are a lot of people that don't like Susan Collins, that don't like Janet Mills, and they're not particularly fond of Susan Collins, but given a choice between Mills and how Mills governs, they will side with Susan Collins. A perfect example of that is, I hate Susan Collins. I'd love to see her gone. I'd love to get rid of her. But as soon as Janet Mills announced she was running, I didn't even have a second thought about it. I'm voting for Susan Collins. It's not even going to be a question. Not even a question. As of yet, I'm not hearing about anybody that wants to primary Susan Collins. But as I've said before, you're going to have a tough time primarying Susan Collins, because this is the reality of it. We're going to take generally somebody we don't know, and, you know, okay, let's say they support Trump 100%. Okay, we get a conservative in there, a MAGA. Well, they're automatically not going to appeal to half the independents. They just won't. Susan Collins does. The other problem is, if you get Republicans to primary Susan Collins, you're going to get somebody like that, and they're going to be going up against somebody that's a known name, Janet Mills. Janet Mills will have the advantage. Very dangerous, because if this seat here, in this district I'm in, for Susan Collins, goes blue, it's going to be blue for decades. Because there are no prominent Republicans in Maine, and the seat that Susan Collins holds has traditionally been held by your traditional Republican, a moderate, for decades, going back to Olympia Snow and all these other people. This will be a blue Senate seat for decades to come, okay? So don't even entertain primarying Susan Collins unless there is a legitimate person that is very popular in Maine, that is a Republican, a conservative, and isn't fully behind Donald Trump. Maybe behind him a little, like Susan Collins does, but I will argue that Susan Collins has hurt herself among Trump voters, because I'm pissed at her. But what else are we going to do? It's a conundrum. It's an enigma wrapped in a riddle. So I do know that the best thing to do right now is status quo Susan Collins. That I do know. So we will do what we must. I can still hear gunshots. Sounds like a shotgun. Shotgun has kind of a softer, muffled pop instead of a snappy, high-pitched. It's got more of a ploof. Let's see if we could hear some. That sounds like a shotgun. Might be somebody adjusting things for turkey hunting season. It is October. They do turkey hunting in 3 different months. They do the same thing with moose hunting, and they do the same thing with deer hunting. Moose hunting is a lottery. Moose hunting primarily happens up north. You're not going to see any moose hunting around here. Although we do get some moose that meander around here sometimes. It's not very often. See a lot of deer. I think I saw about 7 deer in the past 7 days. Not every day, but 3 here, 2 there, 3 more there. Well, that's 7, 8, 9. Oh, well, 9 or 10 I've seen the past week and a half. I think we got some pretty video on this walk today. Even though the foliage is not as vibrant and bright as usual, still I think is going to look pretty good anyway. Just not quite the same punch or zip. Not bad, not bad.
Distance 4 miles. Time 1 hour 17 minutes 32 seconds.
An hour and 17 minutes, 4 miles. I got a couple miles left, about another mile with you guys. Still hear the gunshots off to my left. Pretty far out in the distance now. It's not legal to shoot guns where I am now. There's the vote no on one sign. Now, like I say, I don't vandalize signs, but it doesn't mean I don't feel like caving it over and kicking it. But we don't do that. We don't do that. Because we actually believe in democracy. Democracy still means something with me, mister. I actually have sweat running down each arm. This is an extra thick sweatshirt. Because I thought it would be windier than it is. Turns out it's not. So, turns out it is not. And I am just wearing a t-shirt under this sweatshirt. So this is a sweatshirt that I've had for a long time, and I never wear it. And I never wore it because I was too fat to wear it. Now it fits loose. It's fleece lined. It's lined with fleece. It is very warm, I have to admit. Well, this may become one of my favorite new walking jerseys. Turn the camera back around. See what's going on in the neighborhood. So what's interesting right now is watching the election in Virginia. Winsome Sears is gaining ground on the white liberal female Democrat who had a lead. She wouldn't denounce Jay Jones, who made those comments about killing a Republican, shooting him with bullets in the head and stuff like that. She wouldn't denounce him, and he's still on the ticket. And her campaign just released shirts that have his name on it. So, because of that, the race has tightened significantly. Now it's within the margin of error, where previously the Democrat had a big lead. That has evaporated. Something similar is happening in New Jersey as well. The Democrat, because they like to talk, are harming themselves with their policies. Chitterelli has a chance of winning in New Jersey. He's within the margin of error.
Distance 4.5 miles. Time 1 hour 26 minutes 54 seconds.
So this is amazing stuff to watch. Democrats are their own worst enemy. Truly. What happened with the person running for New Jersey is Chitterelli was on the debate stage and he said, people are paying too much taxes. He goes, I want to cut your taxes. I'm telling you right now, I will cut your taxes. And the person he's running against is not going to. And that person had an opportunity to say they would not cut taxes, and they wouldn't do it. He said they're going to raise taxes, and he told that person, is that true? You're going to raise taxes? He wouldn't say anything. So that means yes. New Jersey, if you're not familiar, has some of the highest tax citizens in the country. And this guy is standing up there saying they're going to raise taxes more. So after that debate, the race tightened up even more for the Republicans. All you got to do is have these people talk. We have election signs. These apples. These apples look stunted, don't they? Stunted apples. Last night I needed gloves. Tonight I don't need gloves. All right, we'll walk up this way. Somebody walking a dog. Make life easy for them. Cross over. Some kids playing a game over there. I don't know what kind of game that is. Some kind of disc toss. That's a pretty dog. Look at that. Hi. Pretty dog. Nice shiny coat. I like that. She saw my MAGA hat and she waved. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? Most of the district we're in here is Republican. And not even a half mile from here, it changes. Changes quickly. You remember these lawn signs out here last year? Pro-Trump. Trump, Trump. Now I'm going to cross back over. So, I don't know what happened with that shirt we saw in this metal box that had karma written on it. But the shirt is gone. I did send an email to the police stating it was probably nothing at all. But when you have things like that propped up on it to be seen on purpose with handwritten words like karma on the front of a kid's shirt, held on with a stick wedged under it to hold it in place so it gets seen, it's obviously a message that is intended to be seen. The only karma message I can think of is not good. Hey, how you doing? Not too bad. Not too bad. That guy was squirrely. Somebody mowing their lawn again. I mean, technically I could mow the lawn again, but it's not really necessary. I've already prepped the lawnmower with stabilizer and ran it for a few minutes to run it through the carburetor. Prevent any gumming up. I've also been running gum out periodically, every now and then. If people would check out videos on how well that stuff actually works. Good old-fashioned cheap gum out. Petroleum distillate. There's really no additives to it. It just has a perfect blend. You can see what it does when you send
5 miles.
A digital lens,
1 hour 35 minutes 50.
fiber optic lens probe inside an engine and look at the before and after for the valves specifically. You'll have dry black cooked on carbon from alcohol additives and fuel, ethanol. Alcohol does not burn, well, it burns pretty cleanly, but it leaves a black residue, carbon. And so you put that probe in there and you look before and after, and the valves end up coming out looking pretty much like new. It takes all the carbon off it. A very simple $3 bottle of gum out from Walmart. So once a year, when I go fill up at the gas station, I dump the recommended amount per whatever gallons I put in. And then you just drive your car. And cleans everything out. Oh. Cute leggy girl is good at that. She's athletic. Shorts weather today in some circles. All right, my friends, I'm going to sign off. I want to say thank you very much. I'm going to get to the shade. The sun's awfully bright. It's setting. Well, one more this way. All right, my friends, thank you very much for walking with me today. Click like and subscribe. Share the content. If you have an election going on where you are, which you probably do at some form or another in an off year, it's important that you vote. Go online, get an absentee ballot if you need to, and say a prayer for Trump and the country. Pray for peace in the world, which includes peace in Ukraine, and regardless of if there's a side you support, we just want peace. That's it. No more wars. Republicans are anti-war. And so anyway, God bless you and your family. Click like and subscribe, share the content. And over the next 3 weeks, I'll be adding some new gun content. It's been kind of a hiatus for the summer. It's just the way it's been. And so anyways, my friends, thanks for walking with me today. We will see you on the next walk. Have a good evening and a great weekend. Bye-bye now. See you later.